In today's college football spotlight, let's talk about those back-to-back national champion Georgia Bulldogs. The Dogs didn't rebuild this offseason. They reloaded by locking up one of the top-ranked recruiting classes. So Jake Reuse is a senior recruiting analyst for DawgsHQ, and he's on the line now to catch us up with the storm that's brewing out in Athens. Jake, thanks for joining us. I need to kind of preface this and break this down for the people in context. They don't speak recruiting. So Georgia has the #1 recruiting class for 2024. In 2023, they had the #2 recruiting class. That means those guys are heading into training camp now, their first training camp. Who are some of the guys that we should be looking out for who can have that instant production for this UGA football team?
Well, like you mentioned, Brandon, it was the #2 class, but it was kind of splitting hairs because there were a lot of great players in this class for Georgia. A couple guys that I would watch for early on if you're looking for 2023 guys to follow. Janelle Aguero, one of the top safeties in this class. Georgia needs some help on the back end, replacing a guy like Chris Smith. They need some experience back there. Javon Bullard's going to be a factor, but how does Janelle Aguero factor in? I think he's a key guy to watch, perhaps at that star position, maybe dropping into safety later on. Roderick Robinson, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for the 4-star running back to step in and play. You know, Georgia has dealt with some injury concerns. The room's a little thinner than maybe they'd prefer, so I'd watch for Roderick Robinson out of California to maybe get some carries early this season. Damon Wilson, another guy out of Venice, Florida, brings the pass rush each and every time, and a guy who you just can't teach that skill, right? And with his size, his power, I think he makes an impact. And then lastly, Jordan Hall up front plays on the defensive line. I think he's a guy who rotates early and often for Georgia's defensive front because of his size, because of his power. He's a disruptor and a guy who's going to give offensive lines headaches.
Well, we're starting to see a change in the landscape or the changing of the guard in college football. Kirby Smart is not only outsmarting Nick Saban on the field, but in the recruiting aspect as well. We know about Kirby Smart as the coach, but how good of a recruiter is he and his staff?
They're tremendous. They're one of the best in the nation, and that's why you've seen consistently great classes since Kirby Smart arrived in Athens. Sitting with the #1 class right now in 2024, signed #2 last year in 2023, and oh yeah, they're already in the driver's seat for the #1 class in 2025, already leading in the On3 industry ranking for that cycle. So Georgia's doing a tremendous job when it comes to recruiting, and it's a high-value thing for Kirby Smart. His coaches must be good recruiters in addition to being top-tier offensive minds, defensive minds. They've got to be hungry for it as well. He's kind of made that his calling card. Kirby cut his teeth under Saban like that as well and was a tremendous recruiter, obviously developed some of the finest players in the current NFL as well. So it's something that he's really hung his hat on, and it's something that he's built Georgia's program around as well.
Well, I got to put you on the spot here because you've evaluated almost every player on this Georgia roster from when they were young pups. Now they're dogs. Can the Dogs three-peat this year?
I think Georgia's got a really strong chance at it, Brandon. I think that they are really set up well for this thing, primarily because of how their schedule sets up. This is not one of the hardest schedules Georgia's had in the last couple of years. Now, 2024 schedule looks a lot different. It's going to be pretty tough on them. I think this 2023 schedule sets up really nicely for Georgia to get guys in, get them experience, and get them ready for a playoff push. If that's the case, I think Georgia's got the depth, the coaching minds, and the talent in order to make this a three-peat.
Hey, Jake, thanks for joining us, man. Go Dogs.
Thank you, sir.